My name is Maria Juarez, and you're listening to In This Casa. Bienvenidos. In this podcast, I aim to memorialize and honor my husband David's memory by exploring conversations about life and what it's like in my casa, and hopefully in other casas as well. Welcome back to In This Casa, and thank you for joining me. In this episode, we're going to talk about the day I lost my husband, David. But let's go back a little further so you can fully understand what the day was like for me and my family. At the end of 2022, I left the company that I had been working for 8 years. And going into 2023, I began to start working for a private family in Preston Hollow. So the idea with the transition was that I would have time to focus on our personal businesses a little bit more. Bella did live with us at the time, and Sarah was in school in California. So in the beginning of 2023, Bella moved out. She didn't live with us anymore, and I was working for this private family, and it was great. I really enjoyed it, but the role ended up being more demanding than I had anticipated it being. So it was something that David and I evaluated and discussed together because it wasn't really filling the purpose of what we had set it to fill out at the beginning of the year. Like I mentioned, there were the other two businesses that I had to attend to. So I was very busy all the time, and David had gotten a new job, which he was really enjoying, and things were just good. Besides the fact that I was working a lot, things were really good. And the summertime came, and David was just spending his time enjoying his leisurely hours in the evening and on the weekends. You know, like I said in the first episode, he had a routine of the things that he would do on Saturdays, which included riding his motorcycle and swimming in his pool. And life was just good. A little stressful for me, but we had been discussing it, and we had decided that I was going to leave my current job, and I was going to go work for a company that would hopefully serve the purpose of what we had intended. So I did find an opportunity, and it sounded like a good opportunity for me and for us to execute what it was that I was trying to accomplish and what we wanted to do, because the intention was also for David and I to have more time together. Like I said, Bella didn't live with us anymore, and Sarah would be coming home for the summer and did come home for the summer, but then she would be back off to school for her sophomore year in September. So David and I were looking forward to being kind of empty nesters. Yes, my mom did live with us, but we still felt like we were going to be empty nesters. And so we were gearing up for that. We were excited about it. We were making plans of trips we were going to take and date nights we were going to do and all these things. And so in making those plans and being excited and figuring out what looked good for us and what our goals were and how we were going to accomplish them, our short-term goals, we decided that I would take this other role. So I put in my notice with my current employer, and my last day with them was Friday, August 11th, the day before David's accident. That day I got off of work a little bit early on my last day, and I came home. I had to do a business meeting for the salon over Zoom. I did the meeting. I think I was done by like 4:30. And then David and I had planned to go to an early dinner, and Sada was home, so we took her with us. And we went to Hook, Line, and Sinker in Uptown, which is one of our favorite seafood restaurants. And it was great. That evening we came home, and we just had a quiet evening at home that Friday. David and I watched a movie, and we went to bed. The next morning, David and I woke up, and we were hanging out in bed for a little bit, getting our day started. And then he got up because he had to take Raven to the vet. And he asked me if I wanted to get up and go with him. And I was like, oh, it's the first Saturday I've, had off in months. I'd like to sleep in a little bit and then I'll get up. And he said, okay, that's fine. So he got up and he went to go have the car washed, and he took Raven to the vet, and then he went to the dog park, and then he came home. While that was happening, I took my time. I got up. There was an issue with Bella, so I was kind of trying to address that and talking about that with him. And I was getting started in my day. I needed to go meet with my new employer at noon at their offices, and I also unexpectedly found out or realized that I needed to go into the salon as well and spend a few hours working at the salon that Saturday. So I was preparing for that. So I was in my car, him and I were on the phone, running errands, doing the separate things, and then we both descended on the house prior to me going to go see my new boss and meet with him. And David and I talked for a minute. I left the house to go to that meeting with the intention to wash my car first. And I left David in the garage prepping his bike for his ride. And I left. I went to the meeting. After I left the meeting, I sent David a text message to let him know I was headed to the salon because I didn't want to call him because I assumed he was writing. And whenever he stopped or would have a moment, he would check his phone and he would be able to see that I texted him and he would know what I was up to or what my status was, where I was at the moment. And I went to the salon and I was working. I think I got there around 1:30. And I just didn't feel right. To be completely transparent and honest with you guys, the conversation that David and I had when he was in the garage was a little tense because he had ran errands that morning and he was going to go ride his bike and he was already telling me that he, wanted to cook out and he wanted to, get in the pool. And we were arguing about the sprinklers because it was 108 degrees here in Dallas and it had been for a couple of weeks and it was going to continue to be for another week and a half or so. And our grass was just dying. Everything in the yard was dying, all of our plants, all of our grass. And I was having to go out and water the yards manually, the front yard and the backyard manually. And I was annoyed. There was a couple of issues, like a sprinkler broken and something wrong with one of the irrigation lines in one of the flower beds. And so we weren't able to run the actual sprinkler system. And I wanted him to fix it so that I didn't have to stand outside and water the grass. I wanted to just be able to turn it on. And so we were fighting about the sprinklers. So I went to the salon and I was working and I was doing my best to focus on, helping and doing what I needed to do at the salon, but I was just so distracted and I just had a icky feeling. I just had a really icky feeling and I couldn't put my foot on it. I talked to my sister and Wendy and just mentioned that, maybe it's because we were fighting about the sprinklers that I just felt not good. I just had this icky feeling and I couldn't shake it. And David hadn't responded to me yet to my text message. So, it was already like 2:00. It'd been an hour and he hadn't stopped yet. In my head, I'm thinking he hadn't stopped yet. He was still writing and hadn't responded to my text message. And so it had been an hour, and usually within an hour, he stops to put gas or to turn around or to readjust, whatever. I don't know what he does when he's writing, but, he makes a stop. And then I would have gotten a response by then. And I hadn't gotten one. So I was just not feeling great. And right around that 2:00 mark, I was in the break room and I was walking out of the break room and into the salon. And I went to go grab for the handle of the door. And when I grabbed the handle, I stopped for a second because I had a thought that if I lose my husband today, it's not because we were fighting. And I stood there for a second and I thought, why am I even thinking that? Like, that's crazy. And I tried to shake it off and I went out into the salon to do whatever it was that I was walking out of the break room to go do. And so I finished, doing what needed to be done there, or what I got there to help do. And it was about 3:00 and it had slowed down and it was manageable for the team. And so I told Amanda and Wendy, I'm going to leave because I haven't heard from David, and I still hadn't heard from him at that point. It was about 3:00 and I still hadn't heard from him. He hadn't responded. And I was feeling, I couldn't shake that feeling. And so I was like, I just need to go home. I need to go check on my husband. I need to go. I just need to go. And they were like, okay, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead. We're good now. So I got in the car and I was leaving the salon and I was exiting the parking lot onto the street. and my phone rang, and it was my brother-in-law, Kevin, my sister's husband. And Kevin and I have a good relationship. Mandy and Kevin have been together for almost 20 years, and my brother-in-law never calls me. He never calls me. So, because I had had that weird premonition, I guess, when I was in the break room, when my phone rang, I normally I have a phone stand in my car like most of us do. And I had not even put my phone up there yet because I was in such a hurry to get home because I just had a sinking feeling. And so my phone was still in my lap and I was exiting the parking lot and the phone rang and I grabbed it and looked at it as I was, picking it up. I remember very vividly looking down at it, not looking up in the stand, and it said Kevin. And I just knew. I knew because he never calls me. And so I answered the phone and I tried to sound like I wasn't thinking that something bad had happened because I don't know, I guess I thought that would make it different. And so I answered the phone and I said, "Hey, brother-in-law, what's going on?" And he said, "Sister-in-law, where are you? Are you in the car?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm driving. I'm leaving the salon. I'm heading home." And he said, "I need you to pull over." And I couldn't because the street that when you exit the parking lot where the salon is, the street is like 4 lanes, and it is the service road to a tollway. So on a Saturday around 3 o'clock, there's a lot of cars, because there's also Galleria Dallas is right on the other side of the tollway, so it's just a pretty busy area. So I was in the center lane, and so I was like, I can't pull over, but like I'm in traffic. I'm in the middle of like a bunch of cars. Like I'm about to go over over 635. Like, what's going on? And he kept saying, "I need you to pull over. I need you to pull over." And I was like, I can't. Like, I literally cannot pull over. Can you just tell me what is it? And he said that there were 2 police officers at the house. And so David and I live on a cul-de-sac. Our home was at the end of a cul-de-sac, and it's my sister Amanda and my brother-in-law Kevin live next door to us, like immediately next door. Like I put a door in our fence that connects the backyards one day when Amanda was at work, even though she told me not to. That's that's next door. That's a story for another time. But so they live next door. So he said that there were 2 police officers at the house, at his house, that they had gotten there and they had knocked on the door and they had told him that David was in an accident. And I said, "Oh my God, where is he? Where is he?" And he said, "He's dead, sister-in-law. I'm so sorry." And I screamed, "Oh my God." And I just kept saying, "Oh no." I was still driving and I kept saying, "Oh no, oh no, oh no," over again and over again. And he said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm on my way home." He said, "Come." I said, "What do I do? What do I do?" He said, "Come home, come home." So I said, "Okay, I'm on my way." And I hung up and I was still driving towards the house, and I immediately started to think of my girls and my sister-in-law. And so I believe I called my sister-in-law first, and I just told her. I was crying, and she answered the phone. She said, "Sister-in-law." I said, "Where are you?" She said, "I'm at home." She said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "David was in an accident." And she said, "Is he okay?" I said, "No, Janie, he died." She screamed. She just said, "Oh my God." And I said, "Meet me at the house. I'm on my way. Meet me at the house." She said, "Okay." And I told her, I gotta call my girls. By then, as I'm hanging up with her, my sister Amanda was calling me. So I answered her call. She was frantic. She was like, "I'm leaving the salon right now.
Are you okay? I was like, no. She was like, how far from home are you? I said, I'm almost there. I'm just trying to focus and get there safely. She said, okay, call me as soon as you get there. I said, sister-in-law, please call my girls. Call my girls and tell them I need them to come home right now. And she said, okay. And I don't remember if I called my sister-in-law back or if I think I didn't call my girls because I think I was just trying to focus on driving home safely because at that point I was having a hard time. I was bawling. I was distracted. So I was just trying to get home. So I got home and I got to the house and none of the cars were here. No, that's not true. I got home, I got to the house. David's car was parked in the front of the house, kind of just casually, like not parked correctly, like he, when he had parked when he came back from running errands in the morning. And my mom was at work, so her car wasn't here. Sarah had gone to the Apple store because she had cracked her phone earlier in that week, so she was going to have it repaired. And so there weren't any cars in the driveway. So I pulled into the driveway and I got off the car and I ran into the house and I opened the door and I still yelled for him as if it wasn't going to be true. I yelled, baby, as I ran in and there was no response, obviously. And then I ran to the backyard and the garage door was still open because David would leave it open while he was riding. And I looked for him. He wasn't there. So then I went back into the house. I let Raven out. Well, Raven came outside with me when I went outside in the back. I left her out there. And I came back into the house. And I stood there for probably just a few seconds. But it felt like a lifetime thinking, what do I do now? And so I called my brother-in-law. And he answered. And I said, where are you? And he said, I'm out. I'm inside. I'm coming outside. I'm next door. I'm coming outside. And I said, okay. Or I'm coming over is what he said. I'm on my way or something like that. He was coming to the house, but I didn't even, when he said I'm home or I'm next door or whatever he said, I didn't wait for him in my house. I left my house and went into the front yard to go meet him in the front yard. And we met in the driveway on the other side of my cars where we both found each other and we just hugged and started crying. And while that was happening, my sister-in-law pulled up in her car with one of her sons, I believe. Sorry, it's kind of blurry. And then Mia pulled up in her car as well. And we were all just in the front yard crying. And then I asked my brother-in-law to tell me what happened and like, where were the police officers? What am I supposed to do? What do I need to do? And so he said what happened is that, as I mentioned in the first episode, David was riding up Stemmons Freeway and he was headed towards Windstar. And about a mile south of Windstar, Windstar is a casino and it's on the Oklahoma, just past the Oklahoma border, about a mile in. And about a mile before getting to the casino, still on the Texas side of the freeway, David had an accident. And apparently his accident happened sometime between 1:30 and 2 p.m. So around the time that I had that feeling while I was at the salon. And then he, because he was in a different county, because he was 70 miles away from home, they sent the Dallas Police Department here to the house to inform me. They got his address off of his license. And they sent a couple of police officers here to the house to inform me, but nobody was home. So they came and they knocked. Nobody answered because nobody was home. And they went across the street to go ask my neighbors if they knew who we were. And I don't know, I guess they probably would have asked for my phone number or something. But the neighbors across the street told them that my family lived next door, that there were family members next door. So they went and knocked on the door at my sister and brother-in-law's house. And my brother-in-law was the only one home, and he answered the door. And so that's why they told him. And that's why he was the one to call me and inform me. Which breaks my heart that, that happened to him, that he was home and that he got that news all by himself and that he was the one who had to call me and tell me. Breaks my heart for him. But, so he told me all that. The police gave him the information for the state trooper that was involved. who was investigating the accident or responsible for the accident or whatever you want to call it. And so I called him. I don't think he answered. I believe I left a message. And then I started calling the, I'm going to say the Dallas County coroner, but that's not right. That sounds wrong. I think it's the Dallas County Medical Examiners is what they call it. So I started calling them to see where David was, and they hadn't received him yet. His body was still en route from Cook County. And so they said they would call me as soon as they received him, and I was just in shock. And my mom got home. I don't even know if I called my mom. I don't even know how I don't know. Maybe I did. I don't even know. I don't know. But my mom ended up getting home. My mom and my sister-in-law. I think they started informing family members on the phone. I vaguely remember them being on the phone while I was trying to communicate with the state trooper and trying to communicate with the Dallas County Medical Examiner. Again, it was a Saturday. It was the afternoon at this point, so it was the end of a work day for a lot of people, and so I was just trying to get a hold of the people involved so that I could try to piece together and understand what had happened and where my husband was, because I wanted him. I wanted him, and I couldn't get to him. And the rest of it is a little bit blurry. I believe I don't even know when or how, but my family started descending on my house, my side and David's side. And I know that, I can be a private person, and I can, sometimes, and I've mentioned before, I'm a private person and I value my solitude. So everybody kept saying things like, is it okay that everyone's here? And I was just like, yes, I appreciate everybody being considerate of how I felt or I would feel because of my personality. But I was like, David would want everybody here, and I don't care if that's something that would be uncomfortable for me. It's what my husband would want, and it's what he deserves. And there were people everywhere in my home. There were people in our backyard. There was just people everywhere who had showed up to just give support. And I couldn't even focus on any of them because I was trying to understand what happened. And I think at one point it was already dark. It must have been like, I don't know, I guess it had to have been like after 8 because it was dark and this was summertime still. So it doesn't get dark until late. But there was a moment where I had already communicated with the Dallas County Medical Examiner. I had already communicated with the state trooper. The only thing that I could do at that point was wait for them to do David's examination so that I could have the funeral home pick him up, so then I could have an idea of when I could see him. And the state trooper, I wasn't going to be able to go pick up his belongings until Monday, so there was nothing I could do in regards to that either. And I was just sitting in my dining room, and there were people everywhere, and I just remember feeling antsy, like I can't just sit here. I can't just sit here, and I have to know what happened. But there was no way for me to know what happened, and there was no way for them to. No, it wasn't dark yet. Was it dark? Shit, I don't remember. Okay, anyway, listen. The point is that I left everybody at my house, and I got in the car and I drove up to where his accident happened because I needed to see it. Obviously, by the time I got there, there was no debris, there was no anything to see. There wasn't even an indication at that point where the accident was. And it wasn't at night. I'm getting confused. Shit, I don't know. One day I drove up there and I took my sister-in-law with me, which may have been the day of his accident, but I don't remember if that was that day or the next. And then another day, my brother-in-law and one of my closest cousins, the two of them drove up there with me, and it was dark. That might have been the next day. So the first day might have been still early when we went. Maybe it was around 6. We drove up there and looked around and then came back. And when I got home, there were even more people here, just here to give support. And I appreciate that my family descended upon my house. I appreciate that they came here to support me and support my girls and support my mom and my sister and my brother-in-law and the boys. And I appreciate that they showed up. I don't know that I talked to them much or what state I was in or what I if I even communicated with people. Like I said, I was in shock. I think I was talking a little bit. I was obviously crying. I wasn't hysterically crying, like I said, but I was crying. I was trying to start, I don't know, check on my girls, see how they were doing. I want to say I was sitting at the dining room table with my girls, keeping them as close as possible. But even I could be remembering that wrong. I don't, like I said, I sometimes sometimes I don't remember things. And I think it's a trauma response. I think as a trauma response just from my life when I was young, trauma when I was young, and, it's just been kind of a thing that has occurred. Sometimes I don't remember things, or sometimes I feel like I do remember things, but I remember them slightly different. The main thing I remember about that evening once I got home was that lots of my loved ones were here, and I appreciated that. And that when I finally did go to bed, I don't even know what time it was, but I'm sure it was late. And I believe it was after everybody had left already. My girls and I came into David and I's bedroom, and the three of us slept in here that night together. And the girls stayed with me, and the three of us slept in here. And that was night one.
Join me here next Saturday, and we can continue to talk about what it's like in my casa. And if you're interested in talking about what it's like in your casa with me, send me an email. I'll talk to you soon.